This is The Unhurried Mama, a space for mothers who are tired of holding it together and ready to actually land. I'm Michelle, and I'm a mom, a writer, but not an expert. I'm here as someone still figuring this out, doing it my way, and refusing to pretend it's perfect. Every week, we sit together and untangle one piece of the parenting knot. No tips or fixes, I promise. Just the mess, the science, and the path back to you. So pour yourself some coffee or tea, close the door, and let's begin right where we are. Last week, I told you about the night I stood in the bathroom way past bedtime, staring at a 7-year-old who would not get in the bathtub, and what I found when I finally stopped trying to manage him and started trying to understand him. That was about seeing your child clearly, beyond the behavior and the noise. This week is about what you do once you can see them, how you hold a boundary without it becoming a wall, and what it looks like when your child walks through that moment and comes out the other side. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was sitting at my desk working away when she appeared in the doorway, iPad in hand. The way kids appear when they want something and haven't quite committed to asking for it yet. Can I have my screen time now? Did you finish your learning for the day yet? No. Okay, go finish that first, and then we'll talk, I said, holding the rules out so she could be reminded of them. Well, I need help with my math. Okay, show me, I responded. I want to pause here for a second because I almost filed that line away as a stall tactic. She came for screen time, but somewhere in that doorway negotiation, the truth had slipped out. I need help with my math. And when I asked her to go get her workbook, she went. She didn't protest or find a workaround. She came back with her workbook and laid it down on my desk. Numbers in the 100,000s. The kind of question that looks straightforward on the page until you're 11, and numbers have never quite been your language, and your brain has quietly decided that not knowing the answer is the same thing as not being smart enough to find it. So what she did was actually trust. Maybe not the version we expect. Not a child running towards you with open hands, but a child who, when gently pointed back to the hard thing, doesn't run the other way. That told me we had something worth protecting. I walked her through the example, showed her how to do the first question, and then I sent her back to her room to try on her own. Her desk is just down the hall, a couple of bedrooms between us, maybe 30 feet of hallway laminate, close enough that I could hear her, and far enough that she had her own space to think. I went back to my work. A few minutes passed, then footsteps. She had tried and couldn't get it, and instead of giving up, she had walked back down that hall and came through my doorway again. We sat together and worked through another question. I could feel it, the low-grade resistance humming just underneath her cooperation, the way a wrong note hums underneath a chord. She was there, but barely. Her body was doing the math, but her mind was somewhere else entirely, probably already on whatever game she was planning to play the second this was over. I asked her to try the next one on her own. She left again. This time when she came back, something had changed. The door to the "I'll try" energy had gently closed, while she was down the hall. And what walked back into my office was something raw. She walked in and I looked up. "Did you get it?" Keeping my voice easy, actually hoping she had. And I want to be clear about that because it matters. I wasn't braced for the boundary to be tested. I wasn't waiting to see if she'd earned the next step. I genuinely wanted her to walk back in and say yes, that she got it. I was on her side. I just wanted her to be on her side too. She said, "Oh, no, I don't get it. I don't want to do this." And I got it. I genuinely got it. Because I remember being a kid, sitting in front of something I couldn't understand, and the "I don't get this" feeling being so much like failure that the two became indistinguishable. The same dense, humiliating weight pressing down on a problem that suddenly felt personal. The math wasn't the problem. It was the feeling of not knowing that was. And when you're 11 and something feels that impossible, something in the brain just closes. The part that figures things out, that makes connections, that says, try again, it goes quiet. What's left is the part that's already looking for the door. And she already knew where it was. So I didn't offer a lecture about effort or attitude. She needed someone to stay. So I moved in closer and we worked through it together again. And I'll be honest, I did most of it. I wasn't running a masterclass on independent learning that afternoon. I was just trying to make the thing feel less impossible. One question at a time, until her brain remembered it knew how to do this. She left once more. The frustration was heavy by then. Deep rumbling sighs, that energy that lives in preteens, like you're arguing with someone who is simultaneously 6 and 42. And I let her go. I didn't follow her. I didn't call after her. I just waited. That was a choice. She needed a minute outside the room, and I needed her to know that I trusted her to come back. Chasing her down the hall would have told her something different. And guess what? She came back. 3 times she walked that hallway. Once to ask for help. Another to try. And the last one because she was done and needed to not be in that room for a minute. And every time, the door was open and I was still there. There were moments when my voice had tension in it, when the annoyance I was managing leaked through a little, when I could feel the edge starting to sharpen. I'm not going to pretend I was perfectly regulated the whole time. But I noticed that even when my voice had weight in it, she didn't shut down. She didn't blow up. She stayed right there with me, still honest and vulnerable, and still in it, like some part of her already knew the wall wasn't coming. She knew that because she had tested it before. In the scissors moment, the one I told you about a couple of episodes back. In those shame spirals, and in every repair that came after. She had leaned into this container when it felt uncertain, and it hadn't collapsed. So when my voice got tight on a Wednesday afternoon over math, she didn't read it as danger. She read it as something that passes, like weather, temporary but worth holding out for. And then, because regulation has a sense of humor, we laughed. I don't even remember what it was about. Something about how she genuinely could not see what I was pointing at on the page. some moment of shared absurdity. She gave me that playfully irritated but endearing look. Her shoulders came down. The problem got smaller, and her brain came back online. We finished the work. She got her screen time. And at the end of it, she was proud. Not just relieved, not just glad it was over, but actually proud. The particular pride of someone who made it through something hard and is surprised they're still standing. The next day, without me saying a word, she appeared in my office. "Just so you know, I was just in my room fooling around this morning so far. I haven't done any learning yet. I'm actually going to try now." She self-assessed. She took accountability, without shame, without me engineering it, and without a single follow-up conversation. She just arrived at it on her own and offered it to me like something she had made herself. So what is a boundary exactly? Because I don't think most of us were taught the real thing. We were taught the wall and consequence versions. The version that sounded like, if you don't stop, then I'm going to. Which isn't a boundary at all. It's a threat in a boundary's clothing. And most of us have been wearing it so long, we forgot it wasn't ours. And I'm not immune to it either. I wore it for years without knowing it didn't belong to me. A real boundary isn't a wall that keeps them out. It's a structure that keeps you both in the relationship, in the work, in the moment, while still holding the line about what comes next. And there's a distinction worth making here, because I think we collapse these two things all the time. A limit and a boundary are not doing the same thing. A limit is external. You can't do that. Not yet. Not until. The screen time rule is a limit. It lives outside of her. It was there before she walked into my office, and it would have been there whether she was regulated or dysregulated, cooperative or resistant. A boundary is internal. It's the feeling of, I won't participate in that. It's a decision I made without announcing it, to stay in the room when she was frustrated instead of sending her away to regulate alone, to keep my voice from going cold even when it had tension in it. The limit held the structure. The boundary held the relationship. They were doing different jobs. The wall would have looked like this. Fine, no screen time. Go to your room until you're ready to have a better attitude. And I understand that impulse. I have felt it. I have acted on it, and I have said almost those exact words, probably one too many times. But what it actually does is send a dysregulated child away alone to regulate, which is exactly backwards from how the nervous system works. Regulation doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in connection, always. A child who is fully flooded cannot find their way back to safety alone. Not yet. Not without having someone who has walked them back to safety enough times that their body knows the way. The ability to self-regulate grows from co-regulation. We cannot skip the first part and expect the second part to just happen on its own. What I did instead, albeit imperfectly, with tension in my voice, doing more of the work than I probably should have, was stay close. The screen time was still contingent on finishing the work. Everything else, the frustration, the exits, the heavy sighs, the I don't want to do this, was just information. It wasn't a reason to collapse the boundary. It wasn't a reason to add new consequences on top of it. It was just a signal telling me where she was, which told me what she needed, which was for me to remain in that room and make the thing feel survivable. There's a structure I come back to a lot, and a moment from that same weekend is a good example of it. Her brother found me Sunday morning wanting to build his treehouse on Minecraft. When you've brushed your teeth, gotten dressed, and had breakfast, then you can play. He asked again, the way kids do, just to check if the answer had changed in the last 3 seconds. Well, it hadn't. So he went and did the things. And then I gave him what I had promised. We didn't negotiate or have a standoff. It was just structure with a door built into it. When this, then that. The when-then structure matters because of what it doesn't carry. Like, if you're good, or if you behave, or if you stop arguing. Those are conditional in a way that ties worth to behavior, and kids feel that weight even when we don't intend it. When, then, is just sequencing. It's not a reward for being a good person. It's just the order of things. Morning routine first, Minecraft second. Math and learning first, screen time second. Kids can actually metabolize it because there's no judgment baked in. When a child's nervous system goes into threat response, and the threat can be something as mundane as a math problem they don't understand, the prefrontal cortex goes partially offline. That's the part of the brain responsible for learning, reasoning, and problem solving. What stays online is the survival brain, the part that's already scanning the room for the fastest exit. So when she said, "I don't get it," with that particular flavor of despair, she wasn't being dramatic or difficult. She was simply telling the truth. In that moment, she genuinely could not get it. Not because she wasn't capable, but because her brain had temporarily lost access to the part that knows how to learn. Now, I didn't have any of that language in my head in that moment. I wasn't thinking prefrontal cortex. I was just reading her. And something in my body knew that what was walking back into my office wasn't defiance. It was distress in a costume. And that knowing, before the words, before the framework, is what kept me from sending her away. You cannot teach a child whose nervous system is offline. You can only bring them back to safety first. The learning always comes after. That's why I moved in closer. And that's why I did most of the work with her or for her. That's why I kept my voice as steady as I could, even when it had edges. The message out there is usually, let them struggle, build resilience, don't rescue them. And there's truth in that, but not when the nervous system is in survival mode. You can't build a skill in the brain that's busy trying to survive. That skill will come. But her brain had to come back first. And the laughter, that ridiculous moment of shared chuckling, that was a signal that it had worked. You cannot laugh and stay in threat response at the same time. The nervous system doesn't allow it. Laughter is co-regulation happening out loud in real time without either of you trying. What she took away from that afternoon wasn't just math. It was the emotional memory of what it feels like to struggle and have someone stay. I made it through something hard and I wasn't alone in it. That lives in the body. It's what she'll reach for the next time something feels impossible. Notice what happened the next morning. There was no prompting or follow-up conversation. There wasn't a, "Now, what did we learn?" moment. She just came back and named it herself. Beautifully. That's what accountability looks like when it isn't coerced by shame. It's voluntary. It arrives in its own time. She had enough internal spaciousness to look at her own behavior honestly and choose differently. Not because a consequence demanded it, but because she could actually see herself clearly. When a child isn't punished into compliance, when they've been given enough room to trust their own knowing, that's what becomes possible. We talk a lot about repair in parenting. The moment after a rupture where you go back and sit down and name what happened and reconnect. I've talked about it a lot in earlier episodes. But what my daughter did that morning was a different kind of repair entirely. She initiated it, unprompted, without shame, and without me setting it up. She did that because she had learned, through all the conflict and repairs and moments of someone staying, that honesty is safe here, that she won't be punished for telling the truth about herself. What she offered me that morning wasn't built in one Wednesday afternoon. It was the fruit of everything that came before it. Every time I stayed close and the wall didn't go up. Every repair that taught her, this is a place where telling the truth is always worth it. That's what you're building when you hold the boundary without a wall. So I want to ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it before you answer. Where in your life are you using a wall when you meant to simply set a boundary? Not with your kids necessarily, though maybe there too. I mean anywhere. With your partner, with a friend who asks too much, with work that bleeds into your evenings, with a parent who still knows how to get under your skin in 30 seconds flat. We learn to use walls because that's the process we saw. Shutting down, a consequence, or I'm not discussing this anymore. But walls keep people out. Boundaries keep you in relationship while still holding the line. And the distance between them, in practice, is surprisingly small. It lives in your tone, in whether you follow a limit with a door, when this, then that, or just a face that's closed and a hard stop to the conversation. This week, I'm inviting you to try one when-then. Just once, with your kid, with yourself, with anyone, just as a way of sequencing that keeps the relationship intact while the boundary holds. And if your voice has tension in it while you hold the line, that's okay. You don't have to be perfectly regulated to be regulating. Isn't that worth contemplating for a second? I think so. You just have to stay. She walked down that hallway 3 times on that afternoon. She came back every time because the door was always open and she knew it. That's what I'm building here. For my kids and for you. Not a promise of a perfect system or a flawless mother waiting on the other side of all this work. But someone who stays. Someone who holds the line and leaves the door open and trusts that the rest will follow. Next week, I want to tell you about the moment I realized this work was rippling outward, past me, past our home, into the way my kids move through the world. My daughter said something so simple and true. it rearranged something in me. If this episode landed for you, share it with a mama who's holding a hard line right now and wondering if she should let go. Tell her to stay. For weekly show notes and free meditations, subscribe on Substack. The link is in the episode description. And until next time, leave the door open.